Okay, so I guess main things, right, just kind of give the committee a chance to hear an update for Denise and I, mostly Denise, and I'll back her up where possible, but on where we're at with the project. I think we've kind of kept the pulse on some of the changes that were underway. So Denise, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'd just like to start with one thing and say congratulations to the JCIDA having excellent staff. It has been just a pleasure to work with Dave and Marshall and Joe. I don't know if Joe Russell is here, but a compliment to Joe. He has moved things, and as you know, we've had a lot of moving parts. He's been Johnny on the spot for us and for this project, and also Jerry Countryman here in the facility. So I just want you to know that we staff.
You should share, need to share it.
So I would start with, we still are on target. So I want to talk about timeline. Some things have gotten pushed, as you know, but when we got into this building, we discovered, as I think they've kind of updated you on, our original construction folks were under the understanding that this was a steel frame building, and it's not. So the way to construct the concrete panels tie into the roof, the concrete panels hold up the roof, and the roof holds the concrete panels in place around the outside of this building. So that created some complexity in the design from an engineering perspective. So as they got into, okay, what does it take to actually lift the roof off this building? It got very complicated, as you know, and how do we do that? Which created the need to move the tennis courts to the front and the IBA tenant space to the actual, it depends on what you look at the front. I think of the front from the ground floor parking lot. The first floor parking lot as we went in. So we had to flip those courts because to do it in that front space from an engineering perspective got very, very, very complicated and nearly impossible. So, and then the other thing that allowed us to do is move the track down to ground floor level and not go quite so high on the roof over the tennis courts on that elevation. The other thing that we ran into, and again, I'm going to put a picture up here in a second. But the other challenge that we ran into, I'm sure Dave is briefing you on this, is clear spanning. One thing we had to do the courts, clear span, that added significant cost to the project. And then thinking that we would have to do that over the pools as well became cost prohibitive. So it became much more efficient to move those pools directly outside of the facility. And that is indeed what we've done. As you know, we requested the city for the land for the IDA, the transfer, so that we could move the pools outside of the footprint here. That made dual sense, because the other thing that was concerning was having all of the, and as I already know this because I'm in a previous building with pools inside, is pools create tons of moisture in the air, they create corrosion in the air, and all these things. Being in an existing facility that wasn't designed for that could create long-term challenges for us. So bringing those pools outside made a ton of sense. I'm going to go ahead. Can I share my screen, Marshall?
Yes. Yep.
Share my screen. Okay, so what you're looking at now is the current configuration as we're looking at it today, and this has improved significantly both the impact on the tenants below, the structural integrity of the building, and the project itself. So what you're seeing as changes is the tennis courts and the pickleball courts are in front here. The front corner. We have moved the track to be around the wellness center on the floor level, which is great, meaning we didn't have to build that mezzanine, and that allowed us to bring the roof down some. Now, obviously, we still have to lift this roof and put the 3 group exercise studios inside. All of the wellness equipment will be in here, plenty of really nice space, and incorporate this 6, these are 6 stall bathrooms, restrooms into the design. So we were able to keep those in the design, which is great. So in flipping the tenant space, so the JCIDA tenant space, it actually gained a couple hundred feet, not not a lot, but it's still the same, well, about 14,200 square. And one thing that a benefit to this is was able to incorporate these restrooms, which are perfectly nice restrooms, they're fairly new, I mean, into the design, into the tenant space, because as you know, in this space that was previously proposed for the tenant space, there was no water, no restrooms. Echo to that, so they would have been built into the tenant space, and now you have them already built. The other thing that's been changing, moving the pools outside, it allowed us to get these bleachers in here, which is really important. And I know that was like a tiny little piece of project from an economic development standpoint. It's a big piece of project. This allowed us to get 150 seated bleachers in here for the dual meets and the regional meets of the swim teams, and expand the pool proportions for the lap pool. This is a lap pool, so that we could do not only YMCA swim meets, but also US swim meets. Because YMCA swim meets only require that the lanes only have to be 36 inches, but USA swim requires 42 inches. So this now allows us to do both meets, meaning we can host our swim team, but if schools or others needed to do swim meets, we could also host those as well. So really, really good. The other thing we have here is a very nice kiddie portion, which we have never had in the past. So splash pads and splash features, very shallow water for young children. So a really nice feature. The other thing we were able to do with this design is, so these are the locker rooms. There's 3 locker rooms, men's, women's, and universal. It allowed us to, by pulling these pools outside, we were able to move all of the wet area of the pool, of the locker rooms, forward. So it was all over the space that is already owned. So that we are not, messing in the ceilings above the ground floor tenants for an extended period of time, putting all the plumbing into the locker rooms. So that moved us out of that space. So this is all dry. This is the space owned already back here, and this is where all of the wet area of the locker room will be. So it allowed us to do that. We still will have tenant impacts down below, and we have been working with Washington Street Properties. We're meeting regularly with them. I'm sure David's briefed you, talking with them about the potential impacts below. One is, so we are looking very significantly at the fire alarm system, the fire protection system for the building, and what impacts this new facility being in that property has on that. We are looking to apply for a variance, and in the process of that, Rain Fire Protection is preparing that from having to do 4-hour rated fireproofing because as the Y comes into this property, it's considered an assembly, not a business, under code, and that does impact the fireproofing between the spaces. So, but this will require updating to the sprinkler systems, updating to the fire alarm systems, and we're quantifying what that means right now, and we're in the process of this, so I can't give you the exact details. We just received the narrative from Rand on that, and more to come. But our hope is that we will not have to go into these tenant spaces and do fireproofing of all their ceilings. That's the ideal situation, is that we don't have to do that. If we have to do some sprinkler heads, that works. Still an expense. If we have to update the entire building's fire alarm, still an expense, but that we're adding to the project, but it's not so intrusive to the tenants. We don't want to be intrusive. One area that we will have to is along this, because we have to lift the roof over these courts, we will be putting 4 significant columns in this space to lift that roof. And in this space as well. But on these sides, they are on here, this is all in the space that we're already in. this would be impacting the tenant space. So we are talking to our tenant, Washington Street Properties about that, and they understand. They really want us to come back when we know exactly. And again, Marcel is our construction contractor. Marcel is very, very experienced at working in occupied buildings and minimizing impacts on non-tenants. So we will come back directly with the plan to them on how to do that, on how to minimize that impact. And as you know, this piece, the city quitclaim deed is in process for the city to deed over that piece. So what you see here, now this is the site plan. What you see here is the line of the current owned amount, and then this line is the city's deeding over of the property. So that we have space to do that. What we'll have to do now, there will be no impact on number of parking spots. So the parking spots will stay the same. What the impact will be is we do have to move, there's a 36-inch storm drain and a 16-inch water main that run through here currently that the site engineers are working on the plan for moving those. The city's very aware of that. They're meeting with the city. And I would say that this stuff is kind of internal confidential now, and I'm really very aware of that. And that's why we're just going to building grounds until we get all of the approvals for these. We are in the planning process. So that's what you'll be seeing happening. I can tell you one thing from being in this building. It is just so very clear that this project is going to be hugely positively impactful for downtown, versus this big building potentially being left vacant or left with a long time trying to get tenants in here. One thing we will be doing is the stairway here. We will have a stairway. Let me go back here. This stairway will enter from Washington. So from the lower level, from the mall, people will be able to go out of the Y, down through the mall to go downtown and spend their money. And they will also be able to come up through that same area to come to the Y. So we will have the entrance from the front, we will have the entrance from the back. They will both flow into our welcome center, which will be in this location. And so I'm happy to answer any questions on the drawing design, or I've begun to talk with you, just kind of update you on financing and where we are at.
And Denise, you also just want to point out where the access would be to that tenant space coming down alongside with.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, absolutely.
That was my question.
Yep. We will be rebuilding. So we had, as you're aware of, this outside deck area. We will be rebuilding this deck area so that the tenant space will be able to come directly out of the parking lot. Actually, they'll have the benefit of coming directly out of the parking garage up and into down across here into their space. So we will be rebuilding this deck all the way down. So a couple of things for your consideration and thought, and I don't know, I mean, Dave, I don't know how much information, or because some of this is new. So what originally in our project, in our construction budget, was not replacing the entire roof. It was, new roof on top of this space, obviously new roof here, but not new roof over the entire portion of our portion of the building. So as we've gone through this process, we are really seriously considering a move. We will end up there, but we are going to replace.
Yeah, so what the current roof we have now, the warranty is through 2023. So basically, the year after I occupy the space, well, the warranty will be gone on the roof. We did have a leak issue here last week, though. We got the repairs made under the warranty. So why they're going to be doing an investigation of the roof next week, if the weather holds, to look at the condition and debate whether they want to try to incorporate the new roof across the whole building as well, and looking at our portion, whether we want to, bear the cost of having our roof replaced with the tenant space as well. So obviously, a lot of that decision will be based on the cost and what we find out from that survey on the condition. But it seems like it would make sense if we're going to be due for a new roof to do it at the same point the rest of the roof is being done.
And for us, there's really two components to that, the roof and the building envelope. Obviously, we are working with NYSERDA, so we have NYSERDA working with us, contractors Rambo, that is doing the evaluation to try to get to the 25% deep energy savings. And there's no way we can get to the 25% deep energy savings if we don't replace the roof and don't do the building envelope around our portions. So we're examining both of those things. There probably will be some kind of decision point coming back to you at some time, whether you want to at the same time we're doing the roof on the rest of the building, do the roof over the tenant portion. But that is not in our purview. But we will be doing all the estimates. We will have the walking. We are looking at Dave, correct me if I say this wrong, an infrared scan or something.
Yep, that was it, an infrared scan of the roof, yep.
Yes, we're doing an infrared scan of the roof. So we'll know where the problem areas are. Some of them we already know. And one of the worst problem areas, in a good way, is right here, which is that we're taking the buffer. Because it's, because that's where so roof and building envelope is the other piece. So whether we're going to do, the full EFIS envelope, those are the things we're looking at. We're looking at costs. Obviously, right now, I'm sure Dave shared with you that our original cost of 18.1 million is now 19.7. We are trying to drive that down. We are just in estimates right now, so we're trying to drive that back down. But very likely, we'll drive it down, and then we'll bring it back up with the roof and the building. But again, that's a YMCA board decision too, because it'll come back to them because if it increases the cost of the project, we have to talk to the YMCA board about replacing that cost. Any other questions about, or Dave, did I miss anything about the building?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much brings them up to speed on all the issues we're dealing with at this point in time. Then maybe if they have any questions.
I do. So the roof portion of the tenant space, that'd be our responsibility, Dave?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Is there a distinct line on the roof structure itself between what would be our tenant space and the YMCA?
So Rob, there is not obviously the roof. What would have to happen is, we don't know. We don't know what this would have to look like right now, and that's being evaluated, whether it would be a buffer. If you determine not to do it, whether it would be a buffer or what that would be, will have to be determined as they get into the deeper question.
The idea is that the engineers would mark off that line so they're getting a quote for the Y based on their report.
Right. I mean, there's certainly, it sounds like there could be benefits replacing it. At the same time, I think there might be even a cost savings.
Yes.
Right.
And just another thought too is Billy, the designer, the BCA is doing the remainder of the roof, the other roof. Sort of makes sense to roll that into their work. Again, there's some cost savings there. If they're doing environmental testing, I'm not sure if that's been tested yet.
I can't answer that, Rob.
I don't know.
Okay, so maybe.
And I think so. The other thing, Rob, the other thing we're looking at examining right now is, do we need to tear? If in fact we determine to do the roof, do we have to tear off the old roof, or can we, insulate and put a new roof over top of this? Those are the things that are being examined right now, and I don't have an answer.
And then even with the construction portion, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud here. Even if you use the same roof contractor, you might save mobilization costs, bringing equipment in, all those things that, not to impact the Y schedule, but,
right.
It makes sense.
Hey, Denise, while you're talking to NYSERD, can you inquire about what the opportunity maybe to incorporate our part of the roof into that?
I think that's a great idea, Dave, and I don't know if, it's still, that's a new construction. I don't know what the new construction, I don't know what the new construction application is right now, but it might be worth having a conversation with Steve Finkel from NYSERDA about, is there an opportunity that the IDA could apply to NYSERDA for the new construction and kind of, I mean, it's two separate projects, because our project can only incorporate
Right.
the space that the Y will belong to Lisa, you know, eventually. That's the only space that can be a part of our NYSERDA.
So that's what I'm thinking, is there a way that we, yeah, if you put us in touch with NYSERDA, we can talk to
Yeah,
them
be
about.
like another new construction
Right.
project with NYSERDA, and is that possible?
No, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so Steve Finkel, I'll send you his email,
Okay,
and, you know, it's worth looking at. I
yeah,
mean, we don't know what portion of, if we can get 25%, I mean, that's what we have to get, is 25% of energy savings. We know the only way we can hit that is by replacing the roof and the building and what we can surround it, because those concrete panels are not terribly insulating. And doing some other things, obviously, to hit that 25%. So we don't know that we can, and we also don't know if we do, what portion that NYSERDA will end up absorbing those costs. If I was guessing, I would say it wouldn't be more than 100,000 of the total roof and this cost, which would be significantly more. That's my thought. But still, worth it, if you're gonna do it anyway, worth trying.
Hey, Dave, a question on the roof there. Our cost would be our prorated share of the total square foot of the building, right?
correct.
Okay.
And,
I have a
and the
question,
same
Steve.
for if you determine you wanna do the exterior, you know, from the insulation windows, matching it up kind of thing, you know, for aesthetics and that kind of thing. It'd be the same, it'd be that, just this portion versus, I mean,
Okay.
this portion.
John?
Yeah, I have a question, Denise,
Yeah,
in terms of like noise, potential noise from, from the upstairs to the downstairs tenants, is there anything being done, or is there anything need to be done to do?
no, that's a great question, Pat, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. So, BCA has acoustics in their wheelhouse to examine what those acoustic impacts will be. And, you know, the good thing is where most of the noise would be is this wellness area, where you're talking about weights and running on the track and that kind of thing. If you look at this from a good thing perspective, this is over the dollar store, the Family Dollar. It's not likely to, you know, it's not people who are there all day long listening to it. It probably will have minimal impacts. But we are looking at it, and we are looking at the, ways to reduce vibration, as we would do anyway, wherever we are, because acoustics matters in the aquatics area too. These are big buildings, you've got to have a way to absorb the noise, otherwise you've got kids screaming and a lot going on. And same here, so we're looking at that, and we will look at that. The other thing we're examining right now is tennis courts and making sure we understand the flooring needs for the courts. Because if you play tennis or you play pickleball, you want the ball to bounce in the right way, and being on the second floor isn't like being on a pavement base. So we're examining whether we have to stiffen this floor.
How much more square footage are you end up with here versus what you started with this kick out of the pool area now?
Yeah, the kick out of the pool adds, we don't end up with any more square footage of the building. Because if you look, this was the original tenant space, and this, if you'll notice, it comes over almost a full block. Part of it, this would have been, so basically, we got this piece and gave this piece back. So we're adding, with this, geez, Dave, you know what? I don't know that question off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah, it does add, and I know that it adds to the budget, I can tell you that. Because I'm working with that budget all the time. And we did move, so the other thing we did in this design, so the Creative Arts Center moved here, Creative Arts was over here, we moved the Creative Arts Center to this section, and moved the community kitchen to the basement level. Made sense because there's already gas, there's already everything. I mean, they had a commercial kitchen. We don't want a commercial kitchen, but everything there for the equipment was downstairs, so that made perfect sense to make that.
So in terms of the utilities, like heating, did you guys have to upgrade the heating to include that pool area there, or?
We will be, the pool area will have its own heating and I mean, because air movement in the pool, this has been a huge topic of conversation throughout this whole process because, heat return and air circulation and air exchange and all of that area is really critical. So yes, there will be, as a matter, we will be replacing, I believe, all of the heating units for our portions of the.
So in terms of potential additional cost to IDA, it's the roof and upgrades to windows, is that?
It would be the roof and upgrades, if you determine to do upgrades to the insulation factor around the outside of the building and windows.
Okay.
If you determine that, to do that. My understanding right now, John, is that we will have to bear the costs of upgrades to the fire protection system. The initial upgrades. My understanding is we will have to bear the cost of that.
So is the plan to like upgrade the outside of the insulation with the balance of the building? You guys are gonna like repaint it or restain it or do something?
So, right now, those are yet to be determined. We're getting costs on it, and that's really generally stand because we have to have a budget fund. So until we have those costs, we will be replacing windows, obviously. So with the concrete panels, we had originally had that whole what the architectural guys call it. So Rob would understand that. We had the windows here. What we're doing now is windows inside the concrete panels, because otherwise we've got to tear the roof, we've got to take the concrete panels off, the roof's not supported, running all kinds of challenges. So we'll be putting, I think there's 7 by 12 foot windows inside the concrete panels and doing some cosmetic and some stuff around the outside of them. Those things will be happening for sure, all across the front and the side. So we're doing 3, 3, and then 1, 1, 1, and 1, 1, 1. So all of the windows that are in our version of the building, not with the exception of the tennis courts, will be going to those very large windows. But as far as are we going to fully insulate, wrap the building, and put a new exterior on, that is to be determined, dependent upon cost. We know we need nicer to deep energy, we would have to do that. But it still is going to go, as it would to your board, it's got to go back to our board to determine, once we have those, do we do that, right? So they'll be developing both alternatives for us so that we can make those decisions based on cost and based on our ability to do that.
I mean, would the expectation that the downstairs tenants have to do that as well, or no?
No, the downstairs tenant won't be impacted. This would be just our portion upstairs. Yep. It would just be on the first floor level, which is our level.
Right.
It's been interesting to me to learn the language of, this is really the first floor and that's the ground floor. They've been pointing that out to me, that it's not a second floor, this is a first floor, that's a ground floor, because it goes off to level. It's on grade, first floor. So. Any other questions about the building? I would talk a little bit about, we already said some of this timeline. So some of the items on our original timeline have pushed out based on, understanding we had some significant challenges with the JCIDA to make changes. So that kind of pushed our timeline a little bit, but it did not push the construction start date timeline. So we are still expecting construction to start in July and completed by the end of July or early August 2020. So we are still on target for that at this time. From a financing, excuse me. From the financing perspective, couple of things. So as the cost has gone up, so we have the 9 million, which you already are aware of, 9 million OEA funds. We have the 2.1 million in state funds. We have 1 million in YMCA equity. We have, and we have begun our capital campaign. We have a $6 million gap there to get to the 18.1 million. So capital, the major gifts portion of our capital campaign is ongoing right now, and then we will determine exactly what we believe we can raise of that 6 million. Right now, it's going very well. We've raised 2 million so far. So this is, but we're in major gifts, and we're really. And then we are working with Watertown Savings Bank. Watertown Savings Bank will be developing the bridge financing for this project. We want to keep it. We want to keep it local. We're very interested in local, using local contractors, using local banks, and so we will be working specifically with Watertown Savings Bank. One thing, and Dave, I don't know that we've talked about this a lot, but we have set up a separate account specifically just for the project because we want it to be very clean for the Department of Defense and Feds, because we'll all be audited on this. We want it to be very clean, the money that flows through this project. And I don't know if the IDA wants to consider setting up a separate account for those dollars to flow into.
That would make sense. I'll talk to Lyle about that.
What's that?
Yeah, we haven't talked about that, Denise, but I will talk to Lyle about that.
Yeah,
I guess.
Because, it keeps it very, very clean. You know, this is because the way the DoD funds flow is it's very simple. They flow based on invoice. So you submit once we've met the special conditions, you submit the invoice for construction. Purcell submits an invoice for construction. That invoice goes into their system, gets uploaded into their system, and they pay on it within 5 days. And then, the way that flow would have to work is they pay it, flow into the IDA account, the IDA would flow into the Y account, so the Y can pay the contract, because the contract is with the Y as a subrecipient. Now that we have that finalized, so that great work on behalf of your staff to get that subrecipient agreement, and our staff working on that, getting that done. So that's something to consider. And the other thing, and I know we've talked about it, Dave, and I know we haven't gotten a straight answer back, so I thought we should ping the Colonel again on that, is we have hired, Kelly Clark from Bowers and Company for us to track all of the expenses related to this, to keep, and to, keep us on cash flow, make sure that we're all through financing, and make sure that we have all the receipts and everything very, very clear for a lot of time. So we hired her to do that. She is very familiar with the system that the Feds use for that reimbursement. We cannot go in and do that though, because the contract between OEA is with the IDA. So we have asked the question if the IDA contracted with Kelly, which we would pay for out of the grant, if the IDA, could she do the uploads? So your staff wouldn't be having to do. Yeah, we haven't got an answer on that, have we, Dave?
No, we'll have to ask him again on that.
Yeah, let's ask him again. That would make a ton of sense. Just a ton of sense. Otherwise, Marshall, we're working together again. But as far as financing goes, we're in good shape. We'll meet our deadlines. We'll have our bridge financing set up. We're prepared for that, we're not saving things, we're cash flows at this moment. So in good shape. There's two things that we are applying for that we're figuring out. We've hired a consultant to work on new market tax credits to see if we can secure new market tax credits on this. We believe we could get up to $1.2 million in new market tax credits, and we're working very hard on that. It's complicated stuff, and we definitely need a consultant to do it, so our board is authorized. And then the other thing is the DRI funds that are unexpended from the city. So we are, and again, this is not really, public, we're not working on this publicly. We're kind of advised to wait until after the budget. Wait till after the budget, the state budget is done, wait till after we see if there's dollars going to flow from the feds to the state. And then look at that unallocated DRI money that JCC gave back. Because our project was in that original with a $2 million request. So potentially, we can be open for $2 million of that 2.5 that JCC gave back. So we're paying attention to that, we're looking for it, but we're not doing it publicly at this time because we've been advised to kind of hold off. Makes sense, let's kind of hold off. We'll hold off till summer. Greg, you've got a good insight on kind of the state budgeting process and when it might make sense to do something. So, do you agree with those thoughts on holding on?
Yeah.
There was a concern that they might say, "Oh, you've got an extra 2.5 million. We'll take that back." So we thought we'd wait to point out there's 2.5 million unallocated until after the budget, the state budget was done.
Yeah, this year, I don't know that the state budget's really ever going to be done. But yeah, I would not raise the issue probably until next month.
Yeah, so that's what we're gonna sit on that until after that. And I think that's all. It's a lot, it's complicated. Lots of work being done all over the place on this. From capital campaign and building project and design, and so just a lot of moving parts in mind. But it's really exciting. It's going to be amazing for downtown. It's going to be amazing for the people of the county. And we can't thank you enough for your support and how we do this.
But, you probably have a chance yet. So I just shared with you and the board just a note we got from Joe Russell about the quick claim from the city in that process. So it sounds, as I read it from Joe, that he's saying basically 3 of those 5 claims are already part of our property.
Right.
That I think he's saying in lieu of doing the title search in those other 2, why just provide an owner's policy? I don't know if you had it, you may want to talk to Kevin and your board to see if they're comfortable with that, but that would speed things up on that end.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me, Dave, and I'll send that to Kevin this morning.
Right.
Yeah, quick hit claim makes just a ton of sense.
All right, any other questions for Denise?
I can't wait to cut the ribbon. Hopefully we can do it in person.
Yeah, really. We go ahead. All right.
Thank you, Denise. That was pretty informative and exciting. It's gonna be a great addition to downtown.
Oh, it'll be amazing. It's gonna be amazing. Really. And for the whole county, for the whole region.
Yeah.
I mean, to have a regional destination, you know how many people in the region travel to Clarkson or Syracuse to play tennis? Or take a walk?
Or for swim meets, which I had to do for several years.
Yeah, right, you've done it, Rob, yeah, right. So we can host dual meets every weekend. If they'll let us, come on up. So, yeah, and all that fun.
Yeah, I guess Denise, we said we got a couple other small items for the committee. If you want to head out, you're all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the time and for the support.
So just an update for y'all, I mean, on the furniture, we've had probably, I don't know, 12, 15 maybe different not-for-profit groups come over and look and take some furniture and cubicles from over there. Last week started letting businesses go over to take stuff out of there, just basically telling them, hey, we're not, instead of trying to price this stuff at garage sale prices, we're just asking that you either make a contribution to the YMCA project or your favorite charity, and let it go at that. And I'm going to actually start broadcasting that a bit more to our distribution list as well, our email distribution list of the local companies. So, and then once that peters out, I do have one company that called me. There's some nationwide firefighters association say they take everything out of there, but we'll wait first and just let the locals get it first. And nothing yet from BCA. I just sent Kevin Lewis a note the other day. He replied saying, "Yep, we're kind of keeping our eye on how the space is going to end up there." And their team, some of the partners are actually working on this project and the title for that. But he said he hopes to get back to me by the end of this week on that status.
Dave, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Going back to the YMCA, the tenant space. Maybe she said it and I didn't hear her, but I did hear her say the fire protection system will be carried into the tenant space with sprinklers.
Yeah.
What of the HVAC I know there's upgrades planned for the YMCA, but what does that look like for the tenant space? Especially that we moved from.
Yeah, good question, Robert. I'll ask that question. I haven't asked that since, the location change, but I will at the next meeting with the folks, so.
I was just curious.
No, good point.
And then it did look like at the south end of the tennis space into the running track, it looked like it was a pass through a doorway there. So there is access, not public, but it looks like there is access from one to the other.
I'd have to go back and look at the design to see for sure. I know they
I thought they weren't supposed to be.
yeah.
Not sure, because it seems like we were talking that there wasn't supposed to be access, but.
I don't know that it'd be public access, like it's like a utility door or something, but I noticed on the drawing, it looked like.
Oh, that may have been, that could have been emergency exit door. So they're looking at doing an emergency exit on that end of the building, so.
Yeah, that's my thought, is that'd be necessary.
Dave, is this the first you heard about this full roof replacement and all the?
No, we just started talking about this a couple days ago, so.
When was that cost gonna be to us?
What's that?
I wonder what that cost is gonna.
I know, I guess that's why it helps to get the inspection, just find out for sure. I mean, like I said, the warranty is done in 2023, is over. I mean, there's probably some life expectancy to that roof beyond that point in time, but the question is what? So if you're, let's do the inspection now, just kind of figure out if we can wait or if we should wait or not. And I think cost will be determining. I think two things are to keep in mind. One, once that infrared survey is done, we'll have a better picture of what the real condition of the roof is. And two, when we get that cost estimate, we'll know what's involved there.
So how old is the roof on the building?
It is, I think it was a 10-year warranty. Then we did a 10-year warranty extension in 2013.
So 2003 was the first year, approximately?
Yeah.
So it's about 20 years old and 23 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
How long, does anybody know how long do they last? I mean, is it like a house roof that you get 30 years out of them?
I don't know.
Depends on a lot of the fact.
Depends on how well it's taken care of.
Yeah,
That's
that's a-
exactly true. It's depends how it's taken care of. It's, they could last for 7 more years beyond 20 years.
yeah,
Maybe the best bet's to go up there and assess it.
yeah, Billy said, depending on how well you maintain the seams and the flashing, he goes, you might get another 15 years out of it, but,
Even if you end up with leaks where, you know, that can certainly hurt the
Yeah.
integrity underneath.
Well, we just had a leak we just had a leak a week ago, so it's,
Usually the weak spot would be the transition point from the old roof to the new roof too.
Yeah, that's then my concern with that was, there will be a transition, it'll be well seen, but it's still a seam in the roof. And that if there were a problem, there could be some finger pointing back and forth, right?
Yeah.
so I guess once they do the inspection, once we have some cost estimates, we'll know a lot more.
Yeah, I was just looking at the plans. I took a screenshot of those while they were up. And I think the door you're talking about, if I understand it, is the one that leads into the bathrooms from the fitness area.
You talk about where the running track is?
Yeah,
Is that their fitness area then?
yeah, that's their
Just the north side there.
I think they,
That's what I was, okay, I was having trouble differentiating, were there bathrooms for the tenant space? I wasn't sure.
yeah, the bathrooms are, and I think they rejiggered that space a little bit, so that they could keep access to those bathrooms
Right.
and not have to rebuild them.
Right.
So,
And then our new tenant space has bathrooms that you showed on the outside wall,
yeah.
which is something the old tenant space did
Thanks,
not have.
there's,
So we will need to do, at some point soon, amend our current ground lease to account for the flip-flop of the space, tennis courts and tenant space, and to account for the fact, once we acquire that new area of the city for the pool, have to incorporate that into the ground lease as well, so. As Denise mentioned, having, regular communication, we've been meeting with Washington State Properties, and so they can keep their tenants informed. I think that's been a good process to keep that communication, that line of communication open. So I don't know if anything else that you want to bring up here with the committee today.
Well, I think we're good.
Did they get all the other old equipment out, Dave, the kitchen stuff?
No, not yet. So, Mike got held up because Corey Lawler, his partner, he, about the time we did that deal with them, he was quarantined, he had COVID, and then they had several crew members out. But as it happened, it's a good thing we waited, because we realized that, you remember when we had issues with that walkway being condemned, because of the damage there, we had to fence that off so people couldn't be under it. Well, when we put that fence in on the loading dock, there was no gate put in it. So to get that equipment out of there, you'd have to haul it upstairs. And so I had Marshall take care of that. Piano Construction, they just finished the other day putting the gate on that. We got it padlocked, so at least now they can come and get the equipment and take it off the loading dock onto a truck. So.
Okay. And the way she just talks about that issue with that, gap or whatever it is, that we've had a problem, they're gonna tear that off and reconstruct that, is that part of the project now then?
Yes.
With the, the building code or whatever turns into the building code or something?
Yep. Yeah, that'll be part of the project.
Okay. No, I'm good.
All right, thanks, and I guess whoever's on the board meeting tomorrow, we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Okay,
thank you, have a great day.
Thanks a lot.
take care.
Yeah, I don't know, well, I don't know, I guess, just regarding it being it is a public meeting, because at one point Denise said, because she mentioned something about, it being confidential,
I know, I think, like Jesus said, it was live streaming, it was like, I didn't see Craig or anybody on the,
no.
is there a way to help me with watching the YouTube channel?
I didn't see